For 200 years, the Galactic Conclave watched the small, blue world on the fringe of the galaxy. They called it Earth. They studied its inhabitants, a chaotic, aggressive species they called humans. They cataloged their primitive wars, their slow crawl into space, and their self-destructive tendencies. The verdict was simple: a developing world in need of guidance. But what if the ones being watched were also the ones watching? What if the primitives in their cage were secretly building a key to unlock the entire galaxy? And what happens when the benevolent shepherds reveal themselves to be wolves, only to find they have been provoking a dragon? This is the story of the day the galaxy learned that Earth's silence was not peace. It was preparation. Before we break the silence, take a moment to subscribe and arm our channel for the battles to come. Your support is our most powerful weapon. All right, the long watch is over. Let's begin the story. The data slate shimmered to life in the opulent chambers of High Praetor Forlag of the Conclave. He and his chief enforcer, Warlord Cthar, reviewed the biannual assessment of Sector 7, Quadrant 4. The Earth file. Any change? Forlag asked, his voice a low, bored hum. Cthar's chitinous mandibles clicked in amusement. They have launched a new orbital telescope, larger than their last one, still using chemical propellants. How quaint. Their rate of progress remains sluggish, uninspired. They are a species mired in internal conflict, Forlag mused, observing a holographic model of the blue planet. They achieve one technological step forward, then spend a century arguing about how to use it. They will require significant guidance when the time comes. The benevolence mandate is still decades away, Cthar growled. They haven't even achieved sustainable fusion. Let them crawl. The resources in their system aren't going anywhere. The two powerful beings moved on to more important matters, secure in their knowledge, in their ancient superiority. They had no idea that 300 light-years away and 5 kilometers beneath the granite of the Rocky Mountains, every word they just spoke was being analyzed in real time. In the cold, quiet, humming heart of the command bunker known as Aegis, Director Eris Thorne removed a simple-looking earpiece. Their arrogance remains their greatest vulnerability, he murmured to himself. For 150 years, Project Chimera had been humanity's greatest secret. It began the day a conclave deep space probe was first detected tumbling through the Oort cloud. While the world's governments publicly denied its existence, they secretly united with a single, terrifying purpose: to listen, to learn, and to prepare for a threat they could not possibly comprehend. Now, they comprehended it all too well. Status report on the Luna listening post, Thorne said, his voice calm and steady. A young woman at a nearby console, Commander Eva Rostova, answered without looking up from her screen. Station Echo is fully operational, Director. The Conclave's new observation post on the far side is broadcasting a steady stream of data. They think we can't see it. A grim smile touched Thorne's lips. And are we learning from it? We've learned more about their shield harmonics in the last 6 months than we did in the last 20 years, Rostova replied. They're practically giving us the schematics. Their encryption is child's play. The Conclave thought they were watching a primitive species through a keyhole. They didn't realize that humanity had built a sprawling, advanced university on the other side of that door, using the Conclave's own light to read their textbooks. The long, quiet game had been one of patience and deception. Every radio signal broadcast from Earth was carefully curated to sound primitive. Every space launch was a piece of theater, designed to look inefficient and struggling. Every failed, deep space mission the Conclave observed was, in reality, the successful deployment of a hidden human sensor array or weapons platform. Humanity had worn the mask of a primitive for so long. The galaxy had forgotten they had a face at all. But the game was about to change. High Praetor Forlag, growing impatient with humanity's sluggish development, had authorized the first phase of pre-contact conditioning. A gentle push to guide the primitives in the right direction. The push came in the form of a series of inexplicable, tragic accidents. A fire, caused by a faulty power conduit, destroyed a quantum computing laboratory in Tokyo. An unforeseen gas leak caused a catastrophic explosion at a fusion research center in Germany. A series of equipment failures plagued a new space propulsion facility in California, setting the project back by a decade. In the Aegis bunker, Eris Thorn watched the reports come in, his face a mask of cold fury. "They're pruning us," he said to his inner circle. "They're targeting our most advanced, non-public research projects. Anything that might lead to a breakthrough that would disrupt their timeline for the benevolence mandate." The final, brutal blow came on a Tuesday morning in Colorado. The Prometheus Research Facility was humanity's most advanced, most secret fusion laboratory. It was there that Eris's daughter, Dr. Anya Thorne, was on the verge of a breakthrough. At 32, she was a certified genius, leading a team of 30 of Earth's brightest minds. They were close to perfecting a compact fusion reactor, one that could power a new generation of starships. The explosion began in the main reactor chamber at exactly 9:47 a.m. local time. The Aegis Command Center registered a brilliant flash of exotic energy, followed by a seismic shockwave that ripped through 3 underground levels of the facility. Emergency systems, designed by the best engineers in human history, activated immediately. But it was too late. The damage was absolute. 30 people died in the first microsecond of the blast. Dr. Anya Thorne was among them. Eris Thorne stood at the memorial service 3 days later. He listened to the eulogies. He accepted the condolences of world leaders who spoke of a tragic, unavoidable accident. He played the part of the grieving father, his face a mask of sorrow. But beneath the grief, a cold, hard, and absolute certainty was crystallizing. The energy readings from the explosion, captured by Aegis's own hidden sensors, did not match any known fusion failure mode. The blast pattern was too precise, too controlled. It was a targeted assassination, disguised as an industrial accident. They had crossed a line. They had killed his daughter. They had mistaken his species' patience for weakness. That night, alone in the humming silence of the command center, Eris stood before a single, red, sealed panel. He placed his hand on it. Voice authorization. Eris Thorne, Director, Project Chimera. A calm, synthesized voice responded. Authorization confirmed. Director, invoking this protocol requires unanimous consent of the High Command. They have already given it, Thorne said, his voice low and dangerous. He looked at a simple, framed picture on his console. It was Anya, smiling, holding a complex equation on a whiteboard. Invoke. The Janus Protocol. The Janus Protocol is invoked, the computer replied. All hidden assets are now active. All fleets are now on war footing. Standing orders are now retaliation. Across the solar system and beyond, humanity's true face began to turn towards the galaxy. Stealth weapons platforms, disguised for decades as inert asteroids, silently powered up their plasma cannons. Hidden shipyards, nestled in the cold darkness of the Oort cloud, went to full production, churning out advanced warships. And in the deep, lonely void, 3 prototype faster-than-light ships, the Silent Runner, the Deep Strike, and the Night Falcon, received their new orders. Their mission was no longer passive observation. It was active reconnaissance. It was time to go hunting. On the bridge of the Silent Runner, Commander Eva Rostova read the orders, her knuckles white as she gripped the command chair. She had known Anya Thorne. They had come up through the academy together. Set a course for the Proxima Centauri system, she ordered, her voice like ice. Let's see what our benevolent shepherds are really hiding. The conclave, pleased with the success of their conditioning program, moved to the final phase of their plan. High Praetor Forlag himself outlined the benevolence mandate to the military leadership. It was a masterpiece of cynical, paternalistic aggression. The human homeworld is experiencing an accelerating climate crisis, he explained, gesturing to a display showing Earth's weather patterns. A crisis which our long-range atmospheric manipulators can discreetly enhance. We will create a series of but plausibly natural, weather events. We will destabilize their major population centers. Warlord Cthar grinned, a terrifying sight. They will be terrified, starving, desperate. Precisely, Forlag said. And then, we will arrive. Not as conquerors, but as saviors. We will offer them refuge. A new life among the stars, on several of our carefully prepared resettlement worlds. They will be grateful for our intervention. Admiral Morix, the commander of the designated task force, asked the only relevant question. What of resistance? Forlag laughed. From a species that hasn't even achieved sustainable FTL? Their most advanced weapons are crude chemical explosives. A single conclave frigate could sterilize their entire military from orbit. They will not fight. They will beg for our help. The storms began on a Tuesday. Hurricanes that should have been Category 2 became Category 5 overnight, their paths unnaturally direct. Typhoons that should have dissipated over open water intensified, slamming into coastlines with the force of tactical nuclear weapons. New York was hit first. A 40-foot storm surge, a wall of black water, erased Manhattan. 8 million people died. Tokyo followed. Then London. Then Mumbai. Each storm was a precise, surgical strike, designed to maximize chaos and create a refugee crisis of unprecedented scale. To the galaxy, and even to most of humanity, it looked like the final, tragic death throes of a planet's climate. But in the Aegis bunker, Eris Thorne watched the satellite data with cold, murderous fury. The energy signatures were unmistakable. It was conclave weather control technology. "They're not even trying to hide it," he said, his voice a low growl. "They think we're too stupid to see it." 3 days after the New York storm, the first conclave evacuation vessels decloaked in Earth's upper atmosphere. They were massive, beautiful ships, each capable of carrying 1 million people. To the desperate survivors below, they looked like angels arriving from the heavens. A message was broadcast in every human language, directly into every functioning communication device on the planet. "People of Earth, we are the Galactic Conclave. Your planet is dying. We offer you refuge. We offer you a new life among the stars. Board our ships, and we will take you to safety." On his flagship, a dreadnought-class vessel that could crack a continent, Admiral Morix watched the operation with satisfaction. The plan was working perfectly. Millions of desperate, grateful humans were boarding his ships. "Resistance is minimal," he reported to High Praetor Forlag. "The primitive species is responding exactly as predicted. We should have the major population centers evacuated within 30 days. He had no idea his transmission was being intercepted. He had no idea the primitive species had been listening to his civilization's most secret communications for a century. And he had no idea that beneath the chaos and apparent helplessness, the gears of a war machine unlike any the galaxy had ever seen were beginning to turn. In the Aegis bunker, Thorne watched the evacuation numbers climb. He was letting them gather, letting them get comfortable, letting them believe they were in control. "Director," his tactical officer reported, "they are beginning to expand their search patterns. They are sending patrols to the storm-free zones. It looks like they're preparing for the next phase, forced evacuations." Thorne looked at the picture of his daughter, of Anya. Her bright, hopeful smile. They had taken enough. "Send the activation code," he ordered, his voice ringing with absolute authority. "To all hidden assets. To all orbital platforms. To all fleets." He turned to Commander Rostov's channel. "Signal Captain Kim and the Silent Runner Squadron. The silent period is over." His final command was for the entire bunker to hear. "Show the galaxy what humans are really capable of." Admiral Morix was reviewing the evacuation reports from the London sector when his communications officer looked up, his face a mask of confusion. "Sir, we are detecting a system-wide malfunction in the evacuation ships over the New York ruins. Their anti-gravity systems are reporting catastrophic failures. All of them, simultaneously." Morix frowned. Conclave technology did not fail. Not like this. Run a full diagnostic. It must be interference from the planet's damaged magnetic. Before he could finish, every conclave ship in Earth's atmosphere began experiencing the same cascade of failures. Anti-gravity systems failed, forcing dozens of massive ships to make emergency, ground-shaking landings. Quantum communicators dissolved into static. Navigation systems reported their location as being inside a black hole. "Sir," the officer shouted, his voice tight with panic. "We're detecting massive energy signatures all over the solar system. Signatures that shouldn't exist." The tactical display lit up with thousands of new contacts. Objects that had been invisible, inert, or disguised moments before were now broadcasting powerful, hostile energy readings. Space stations hidden in the churning clouds of Jupiter. Weapons platforms disguised as mining operations in the asteroid belt. And something else. 3 ships, approaching from the outer system at impossible, reality-bending speeds. "Sir," the sensor operator said, his voice barely a whisper. Those ships, they are using quantum drives. But our intelligence reports, the humans don't have FDL. Morix stared at the display in growing, horrified disbelief. The approaching ships were smaller than his, but their energy signatures were off the charts, suggesting technology that shouldn't exist in this backwater system for another 1,000 years. Then, his command console crackled to life. A transmission, on a secure, encrypted conclave military frequency. A frequency no primitive species should have been able to access. A calm, female voice spoke in perfect, unaccented conclave standard. This is Commander Eva Rostova of the Terran Defense Fleet. You have committed unprovoked acts of war against a sovereign species. You have murdered millions of our civilians. You have exactly 1 hour to withdraw all forces from our system, or you will face the consequences. The bridge fell into a stunned, deathly silence. Terran, Defense, Fleet, Morix said finally, the words feeling alien in his mouth. That's impossible. Earth doesn't have a space fleet. Sir, his tactical officer reported, his voice trembling. The approaching ships are definitely human in origin. But their technology. Admiral, some of these energy readings are more advanced than our own systems. Morix's millennia of genetic and trained military discipline kicked in. Regardless of how impossible the situation seemed, he was facing an unknown, hostile force that had somehow ambushed his entire fleet. His response was predictable. It was the only response he knew. All ships, he roared. Battle stations. Prepare for combat. We outnumber them. This will be over quickly. The Battle of Seoul began when Morix ordered his flagship to fire its main cannon at the lead human vessel. The massive energy beam, a lance of pure energy that could shear a mountain in half, struck the smaller ship dead center and splashed against its shields, dissipating into a harmless, glittering aurora. It did absolutely nothing. Impossible, Morix breathed. Direct hit, no damage. On the bridge of the TFS Retribution, Commander Rostova watched the Conclave's attack splash harmlessly against her shields. Her face was grim. Her thoughts were on Anya Thorne's research. The harmonic frequency generators, based on Anya's final, brilliant calculations, had made Conclave energy weapons completely ineffective. Return fire, Rostova ordered, her voice like ice. Target their primary weapon systems. Use the disruptor torpedoes. Let's show them what we learned during all those years of listening. The human response was not a barrage. It was a surgical dissection. Instead of the massive energy weapons the Conclave expected, the human ships fired focused, high-velocity torpedoes. They struck with pinpoint accuracy not at the hulls, but at the exact, minuscule points on the Conclave vessels where the shield generators connected to their power systems. One by one, the mighty Conclave ships found themselves defenseless, their shields collapsing with a deafening electronic scream. How? Morix demanded, as his own shields failed, leaving his flagship naked and vulnerable. How do they know exactly where to hit us? The answer would have broken his mind. For a century, human scientists had studied every scrap of Conclave technology, every intercepted schematic, every long-range sensor reading. They knew the location of every critical system, every structural weakness, every design flaw that complacent Conclave engine heirs had never bothered to fix. The human ships moved with a terrifying, intimate precision. They struck at weapon ports, disabled communication arrays, and crippled propulsion systems without causing unnecessary casualties. It was the tactical brilliance that came from knowing your enemy better than they knew themselves. Then, the attacks from the planet began. From hidden facilities buried deep in mountains, from platforms concealed beneath the oceans, from disguised civilian infrastructure, human defense platforms systematically began disabling every Conclave ship within the planet's atmosphere. The Conclave forces found themselves under attack from an entire planet they had thought was a helpless, dying victim. Within 2 hours, the Conclave's entire evacuation fleet was crippled, not destroyed. The human attacks had been carefully, brutally, targeted to disable rather than kill. But every one of the 37 Conclave ships in the Sol system was now powerless, helpless, and trapped. 12 hours later, Admiral Morix stood in a conference room paneled with what appeared to be natural, polished wood. An impossible extravagance. He was aboard the human flagship, the Retribution. He had been escorted by human soldiers in armor that incorporated technology he didn't recognize. Commander Rostova met him. Her voice was polite, but as cold as the void. Admiral Morix, please sit. We have much to discuss. This is impossible, Morix said, his voice a hoarse whisper. Your species is primitive. You don't have this technology. Rostova smiled. It was not a friendly gesture. We've been watching you for a century and a half, Admiral. Every ship that entered our system, every surveillance probe, every secret observation post. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? She activated a holographic display. It showed the Sol system, with red dots marking every conclave installation, every hidden monitoring station, every supposedly secret operation. You've been very busy in our neighborhood, Rostova continued. But you made one critical, fatal mistake. You assumed that a species capable of detecting your activities wouldn't also be capable of learning from them. The display shifted, showing perfect, detailed schematics of Conclave ships. Of his ship. We studied your technology. We learned your tactics. We identified your weaknesses. Every primitive radio signal you intercepted was carefully crafted to maintain the illusion that we were centuries behind you. Every failed space launch you observed was designed to hide our real capabilities. Morix stared at the display in dawning, abject horror. How long? How long have we been watching you? Since 2157. How long have we been planning for this day? Since the moment we intercepted your internal communications and realized what the Conclave truly was. Another display activated. It showed intelligence gathered from human reconnaissance missions throughout Conclave space, military installations, resource extraction operations, and most damning of all, the systematic oppression of member species. We know about the forced relocations, Admiral, the resource theft, the technological suppression, the species you keep in artificial poverty to maintain Conclave control. We know exactly what you plan to do to us. The Conclave maintains order, Morix said weakly, the words tasting like ash. The Conclave maintains power, Rostova corrected, her voice like cracking ice, at the expense of everyone else. But that is about to change. She activated one final display. As we speak, this information, all of it, is being broadcast on all channels to every world in Conclave space. Your member species are, at this very moment, learning the truth. They're learning about the resources stolen from their worlds, the technology suppressed, the freedoms denied. They are learning what you did to Earth. Morix's personal comm implant suddenly activated, flooding his mind with frantic, panicked reports from across the galaxy. Revolts on the Vidian colonies. Krillian battle fleets refusing orders. Economic protests erupting on the Conclave core worlds. You've destroyed everything, he whispered. No, Rostova said, her voice firm. We have freed everyone. The galaxy deserves better than your version of order. She stood. Your evacuation ships will be allowed to leave. Your crews will be returned safely to Conclave space. But you will be leaving empty-handed. Earth remains free. The humans you rescued will be returned. And you will take a message back to your High Praetor. What message? Morix asked, his spirit broken. Rostova's smile turned predatory. Tell him that the silent period is over, and that the reckoning has just begun.